All right, you guys, welcome. We are so glad that you're joining us for today's virtual History at High Noon, John Chavis Memorial Park Carousel. For today's program, we ask that you please type your questions in the chat function located at the bottom center of your screen. At the end of the lecture, our adult programs intern will ask our speakers as many of your questions as time allows. It's my honor to introduce and welcome our speakers for today, Dana Brown, who is the Assistant Director of John Chavis Memorial Park, and Madison Phillips, who is also the Assistant Director of the park. Dana was born and raised in Raleigh. She has her bachelor's degree in sports science and fitness management with a concentration in leisure studies from NC A&T State University. She has her master's degree in parks, recreation, and tourism management from NC State University. Brown comes from a lengthy background in the parks and recreation field, as her mother was the center director at the historic Method Community Center. Brown played professional basketball in Australia and worked for the Police Citizens Youth Club, PCYC, providing youth and community programs and services. She has worked for the city of Raleigh in various part-time capacities over the years and became an assistant director of the park in January 2022. Madison Phillips was born in Orlando, Florida, and later went to high school in Hillsborough. She has 2 Bachelor of Arts degrees in History and Political Science and a Master of Arts degree in Public History, all from NC State University. Her research focus is on community and family history. She worked for 3 years at the City of Raleigh Museum as a part-time museum educator, and then as a recreation intern for the City of Raleigh Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources. Phillips has been working as an assistant director at the park since November 2022. Okay, you guys, I'm going to turn it over to you. Welcome. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having us. So we do have a slight update since we've last sent that. I am now the director of Chavis, which began in March, the end of March. So we have some role changes.
Yep, so that's reflected in our PowerPoint. Of course, email and phone number is still the same. So when we give you the contact information at the end of the PowerPoint, feel free to reach out if you have any more questions. So we're going to go ahead and begin. Thank you again for joining us at History at High Noon. We will be talking about our historic carousel today. And all of the images that you will be seeing throughout this PowerPoint are either owned by Raleigh Parks or the North Carolina State Archives or News and Observer. So please join us. Here we go. So this is the carousel that we're talking about. This is the number 2 special 3 abreast Allan Herschell carousel. This is the carousel in its current housing here at the park. We do not know exactly when the carousel was built. There are estimations all the way from 1913 to 1923, but from what I've seen, the most reputable sources say somewhere between 1916 and 1923. So a little bit more. There are 36 horses that all move up and down. Then there are 4 kiddie horses that are very stable, and then 2 chariots as well. So in this image, you can see some of the other carousel horses off to the right that are currently in museums or in storage, but all of the ones in operation are in the carousel now.
And one of those chariots that we do have on site, they do offer inclusion. So if anyone's in a wheelchair, they have the option of riding as well.
So another feature of our carousel is our Wurlitzer. So the Wurlitzer is kind of like an old style jukebox, if you will. This one is specifically from 1924, and it was made by the Rudolf Wurlitzer Company. So Franz Rudolf Wurlitzer was an immigrant over from Europe, and he was really into musical instruments. He actually made his business at the beginning by importing musical instruments over from Europe and reselling them in the United States. He then later on went into a bunch of different facets of the business, including band organs, organs that you would see in churches, jukeboxes, and then later on, much later on, electric guitars. So even vending machines, I think I read at one point. But this is our band organ. It is still in operation today. It is very, very loud. There is no volume control, as one of our staff likes to say. So we always ask people beforehand if they're comfortable with having the Wurlitzer play.
Yeah, and so our Wurlitzer, the way that it works, there are belts, leather belts that they have to be oiled twice out of the year. So they use air that pressurizes to make the noise out of the horns that are in the Wurlitzer. Fun fact, there's only one person in this entire world that can actually work on the Wurlitzer. So we only have him twice out of the year. He comes with his precious little dog to come and work on our Wurlitzer.
So just to give you an idea of what we're talking about, if you've never been to Chavis Park, this is our current layout. You can see in the top left corner our old carousel house. So that would be where the carousel was originally placed when it was purchased by the city of Raleigh. And then down near the middle at the bottom, it says Carousel House. So that is where the carousel currently is today. And we are located in the new community center. So John Chavis Memorial Park has been through many different iterations of amenities and buildings and locations within our 28 acres. So just to give you a layout, an idea of our layout, and we will go into detail further on in this talk. So this is kind of our agenda for today. We're going to talk about Allan Herschell and his companies, since this is an Allan Herschell carousel. And then we'll talk about the first half of the park's history with the carousel, and then the second half, including current day. So to begin, Allan Herschell and his companies. These two carousels, of course, are not our carousel, but they are two others that are still in operation made by one of his companies. So when I was researching carousels and carousel history, I actually came upon the golden age of carousels. This is identified as a time period from 1870 to 1930, and there are three main figures in this golden age. You have Charles Loof, Gustav Ditzel, and Allan Herschell. These three men all immigrated from Europe. Loof was from Prussia, Ditzel was from Germany, and Herschel was actually from Scotland. So they all came to America in about the 1870 time period. They were early businessmen who worked with other immigrant communities to bring what they knew about carousels, about wood carvings, about engineering, and change the way that carousels operated in the day. Oh, and quick note about Ditzel. Pullen Park, which is our sister park and the larger park here in Raleigh, they actually still have a Ditzel carousel.
So if you have time, visit both. So Allan Herschell, he was born in April 27th of 1950 or 1851 in Scotland. He was immigrated to America in 1870, and he died in 1927 in North Tonawanda, New York.
Yep. So Tonawanda is where a lot of carousel happenings occurred. So the Wurlitzer company that I talked about earlier, that was based in New York in North Tonawanda. Herschel himself, and then a lot of his business partners throughout the years were in that city. So some of his companies started out with Armitage, Herschel and Company. They worked mainly on engineering services. So you've got boilers. The first carousel drafts that they drew up had carousels operating by a boiler system. Doesn't seem super safe around children, but I digress. And they did a lot of traveling, ended up realizing that carousels were a lucrative business. And they realized that they could make carousels that could be dismantled and travel with county fairs. So that's kind of what they got into. Eventually in 1900, Armitage passed away and Herschel went into business with his in-laws, the Spillmans. So you have the Herschel, Spillman and Company that existed for about 25 years. Again, they were very big on carousels. They did some other kiddie rides, but they were best well known for that. And then there was a fallout of sorts between Herschel and Spillman where Spillman took their own business to Spillman Engineering Company, and they as well built some carousels. But Herschell went off on his own to create the Allan Herschell Company, which was a great company that ended up building a majority of the antique wooden carousels that still exist today. So in 1970, you may have seen that the Allan Herschell Company ended, and that is due to a buyout. Chance Manufacturing, now known as Chance Rides LLC, purchased the Allan Herschell Company and what was left of it. So they kept up a bunch of the carousels. They kept up a bunch of the amusement rides that Herschel ended up creating as well. And Chance Rides was a large family business until just recently they merged with another company. So in 1984, the Herschel Carousel Factory Museum opened up to the public, and this is on the same lot, the same buildings that the Allan Herschell Company actually operated out of. So they have Wurlitzers themselves, they have 1916 carousels, they have his amusement rides, and of course, all of the history of what he did throughout his life. So that's where I got a lot of the information, because they have kept meticulous records, which is really cool to see, as well as North Tonawanda Historic Society. They also kept a large archive, and I believe a state of New York archive was very beneficial in getting me some images and some information.
All right, so now we're transitioning to the actual park itself, John Chavis Memorial Park and the Carousel. So in 1937, the park was dedicated, which is the top left picture. It was dedicated to actually to the park. John Chavis himself, he was a patriarch, a preacher, and a teacher, which we can go in some of that detail a little bit later. Then on the bottom, I guess the bottom left, bottom right, you see the actual carousel. So that is the historic carousel, which we currently still have on site. That's been renovated just for now event space.
Dana's got that right. The canvas tent that you can see in the top left, that was its original housing. And then you've got this building that was built in about 1940. So here is an excerpt from our local paper, the News and Observer, about the installation and purchase of the carousel. The carousel was $4,000 back in 1937. And while I still regard that as a steep sum, I can only imagine what $4,000 would amount to in today's time. So as you can see, Chavis Park was called the New Negro Park. It was called that for a little bit until it received its official dedication name. But it was actually created to be the mirror image of Pullen Park, which was considered a white-only park. So during Jim Crow era, African American people were not allowed to use the amenities in Pullen Park, like the pool and the carousel and the miniature train. Instead, they were just allowed to picnic at the park. So the city of Raleigh took it upon themselves to work with the Work Progress Administration. The federal funding came in, and they were able to build a park and provide amenities.
And back in 1937, we actually acquired, I think, is it 27 acres of land? So as you can imagine, that's pretty large.
Yep, so they added some courts, some shelters, and the park just grew and grew over the years. So here's another angle of that dedication day picture. You can see the carousel in the back right. And then on the left side, you see a building, and I believe that was the pool house, correct? Correct. So there were over 3,000 people in attendance that day, because this was the largest park that African Americans could use between Atlanta, Georgia, and Washington, D.C. So it drew from all over the Southeast. So here is an aerial image from 1946. You can see in the center there, the Carousel House, the little round building. You see the pool off to the right. And then 46 is right after World War II ended. This park was actually used as a hub for African American soldiers. There were tent encampments that there are pictures of online. But it's really cool to see how the park has developed over time and how the buildings that the military built during World War II were then used, one was used as a community center.
And that pool that you see over to the right, that is an Olympic sized pool. So that allowed for Blacks to be able to learn how to swim. There were a lot of swim lessons, a place to kind of come and enjoy when it was hot outside. Again, this was one of those spaces that Blacks got to use because they weren't allowed to go over to Pullen Park.
So here I have a quote that I'd like to read to you. It says, "Back in the late 1930s, most of our recreational programs were at Chavis Park. We taught swimming. We had water pageants in the summer, ball clubs and ball teams in the ballpark. The merry-go-round was there. That was popular. I worked on the carousel and in the locker room before I was a lifeguard." So as you can see, this quote is from Clarence Leitner. I labeled him here as the mayor of Raleigh from 1973 to 1975, but he was actually a very important figure past just being the mayor of Raleigh. It was his father, Calvin Leitner, who opened up Leitner's Arcade, which was the hotel slash business park, you know, an early version of those eat, live, play buildings that they're building everywhere in Raleigh now. And a lot of Black businesses got their start in Leitner Arcade. And it was basically where the Moore Square bus station is today. So it ended up burning down, but Leitner also created the funeral home, Leitner Funeral Home, and Calvin ran for a seat in local government in 1919 and lost out, unfortunately. But Clarence Leitner ended up becoming Raleigh's first Black mayor in 1973. So to see his connection to this park and his connection to the heyday of the park is just really cool. So some of the images, if you want to talk about them.
Yeah, so one of the first image that you see, that's the train. The train was actually here on site. We did have a train. We no longer have one, but if you talk to some of the people that used to use the park, they will ask that, hey, can we get a train back? You also see the dedication day. Sorry, I can't see. And also another fun fact that Chavis also used to host the Negro League baseball teams. So people from all over would come and kind of watch those baseball games, just as you would if you were watching a Major League Baseball game. Shaw University and also St. Alban University used to host all of their athletic events here at Chavis as well. So that gave the Blacks an opportunity to come and watch some of those games as well.
And a shameless plug for the City of Raleigh Museum. They just opened up a baseball exhibit, which the Raleigh Grays are featured in. Raleigh Grays were one of the teams that played here at Chavis Park. So current day, up in the top left picture, you will see a picture of the carousel when it was housed in the historic Carousel House. Some differences I want to point out, it was much darker feeling as the beams were like a dark green.
Yeah.
And then you have the wooden slats on the bottom, which had pretty significant spaces in between them. And then the floor is not cement. The floor looks to be like some sort of mulch flooring. And then
there was also no AC.
Oh yeah.
And so trying to regulate to keep the horses, and because the horses are historical, so trying to regulate that to keep that running, it was very difficult. So as they moved it to the new carousel, AC was put into the building.
Yes, so it is climate controlled. It's a lot brighter in this building. It's in a more central location next to the community center instead of at the back of the park that you may have seen on the map. So it got new floor, it got the middle pole that operates everything actually had a huge crack in it when they dismantled it. So it got a new pole, it got lots of facelifts regarding the paint, and the picture in the bottom right is from April 20th, 2013, when the carousel was reopened in the new building. So to talk a little bit about investment, this is a hot topic with the community of Southeast Raleigh, because for a couple decades there, Chavis Park didn't have a lot of investment. The community felt like the city of Raleigh had moved on to other parks and were investing more in other parks, and they felt a little forgotten. So during that time, we had a lot of community members that stepped up, that really fought for change, fought for restoration. And then in 1982, Rosa Reagan at the time, now Patton, she restored the park for $145,000. She restored the carousel. I mean, you can see her in that News and Observer photograph painting the chariot at the time. And she is actually a Raleigh native. So it was really cool that she was able to feed back into her community. And then in 2012, when the carousel was shut down so that it could be moved to the new building, Lisa Parr did some more renovations, as in more painting and structural renovations with cracks and whatnot. And she did that over about a year period. And I say the cost is unknown here because the cost was accounted for moving the carousel, but for her work, I'm not sure how much she was paid. Lisa Parr is, I believe, from Chicago, and she came in to do her work. Then they dismantled the carousel and then they put it all back together. And she was like, there's more paint chips. So she had to go back through and paint it a little bit more and get it nice and beautiful. So the right side, the right column, the new carousel house, the whole project cost about $2 million. 1.8 million was put into creating the new building, which, as Dana mentioned, is climate controlled. So that part costs a little bit more than just building a building. It's meant to look kind of like a circus tent, give you that old canvas tent carousel feel. And then $266,000 was put towards the repairs. So like the big wooden pole in the middle that I mentioned, that had to be recreated. So that was part of the over $200,000 that was spent.
Which is now a red metal pole. So,
yep, a little more stable now. And then we get to our current state of affairs with the carousel. So last October, we were alerted that the carousel needed major repairs. We had to effectively close down the carousel, and it has been just a very quiet, sad time for the carousel. That place brings so much joy, especially to the people that work there, the kids that get to ride on it. And lately I've been having to tell kids that the horses are just sleeping. They're taking a nap because
they're sick.
or they're sick and they need some medicine. So we got the issues identified. And then over the past 6 months, Carousels and Carvings based out of Marion, Ohio has been working on it. They are the same company that dismantled and put the carousel into the new building. So they are very aware of how it works and all that's needed. But again, they're in Ohio. So for them to come back down here and install it, it's going to take some time. And then you have all of the repercussions from COVID regarding supply chain and getting parts, especially for a carousel that's over 100 years old. It's taken some time. So May 2024, maybe not, we'll see. The repairs are set to be completed and the carousel is set to reopen. Now, again, this is all dependent on inspection. This is dependent on Carousels and Carvings, making sure that everything's operating. But we are hoping that as the summer starts, we will get to open back up again. Very good.
So thank you for spending some time with us and learning about our carousel. Again, we have a lot of amenities here at Chavis with our splash pad and playground. We have fields, baseball fields. We actually we have a full-size basketball court with the indoor walking track. We have rentable spaces for you to have weddings and birthday parties and baby showers, and just come enjoy the history, the genuine history of the park, and understand that you're standing on the shoulders of some really great people and awesome people. So we encourage you guys to come out and hang out with us. We have a lot of special events and programs for youth, adults, seniors, whatever you have, whatever you want, we got it pretty much. So again, we ask you guys to kind of come out and enjoy with us. It's something to look forward to. We are in the process of working on a new aquatic center, which is set to hopefully be done in 2028, which I know sounds like a long time, but once you get into the weeds of things, it's really not. So again, we ask you guys to kind of come out and support and enjoy what we have here.
Yeah, absolutely. This Saturday, we're actually having a May the 4th Be With You program. So if you have any little kids that love a certain galaxy themed movie, we will be doing some games and crafts and have some snacks that are associated with the theme. So we are very excited for Saturday and for all of our other events coming up. We have a 10-day celebration of Juneteenth this year, and it's going to be absolutely amazing with all different types of events, pretty much something every night. So thank you so much for all of your time. We look forward to your questions. And when the carousel reopens, we hope that you'll come visit it.
Thank you so much for the presentation. We have a couple questions coming in. The first one is, what are the main differences between a carousel and a merry-go-round?
Yeah, so that's a great question. As far as I know, they are interchangeable terms. Carousels came about there's records all the way back to the 18th century here in America. That there was a carousel that was created in the late 18th century. Carousel, the word stems from the 17th century, and then merry-go-round, I believe, is just more of a colloquial term.
Thank you so much. Another question we have is, what remains in the current carousel from the original one? Like, was there lead-based paint, or are there hazards found in the original horses?
So the original horses still remain. I mean, of course, they were kind of painted just to make them look a little bit nicer, but those are the original horses that were from the previous carousel. So that pretty much stays the same. The actual, what is that thing called that wraps around it? We don't really work on the carousel, so trying to name the parts of it is a bit hard. But where the part that has like the paintings of it, that is pretty much some of the same thing, just kind of painted over, made to look a little bit nicer. The poles, the red poles that you see, those are new. Again, it went from the old building to the new building, so making sure it was structurally built to fit all of the Department of Labor's requirements. That's why that part is new.
Yeah, Rosa Reagan mentioned in an interview that there was lead paint featured in the original carousel, and she said she had to go to lead school and learn how to deal with the lead paint. But of course, our paint today is safe. But she did chip away at all the layers of paint to identify the original colors that were used, and that's what she used to redecorate the horses.
Great, thank you. Another question we have is, do you have any more information about the upcoming events? I know you talked to them a little bit before, but are also just other events you have planned for the summer?
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
So for May, I mean, it's not summer, but May 4th, again, that is one of the next events that we have this Saturday. That's from 11 to 2. As Madison already mentioned, we'll have some activities, we'll have some arts and crafts. We'll also have some snacks that kind of go inside with the theme of that day. After that, we'll hit June, so we have summer camp that'll be starting. We'll also have Juneteenth, which is 10 days long. We'll start off with Fun Fitness in the Park, and then we'll end it with a Juneteenth day. In the middle, we also have a Juneteenth pickleball tournament. So if you guys are interested in that on the weekends, we'll bring back Chavis Frolics. What am I missing? We'll have a celebration day that's more family geared. We'll have a Chavis and Chill day that is more so if you just want to kind of come and listen to a live band. So we have a variety of different things that will happen that week, and we can send out any information. There's also information online regarding all the events that we have. In July, we have a Splash Fest. So we'll utilize our splash pad, and then we'll add some other water games and activities with that as well. August, we have a cornhole tournament, and then we also have a back to school event. So that's what our summer looks like. Pretty busy. So if you got some time or got some kids, bring them out.
Yep, we'll have 9 weeks of summer camp. So that is all online for you to be able to register. Our main website is Raleigh nc.gov/parks. And it will take you to our software that we use to register for classes, which you may be familiar with. It's called RecLink. You can search by location there. So you can just put John Chavis Memorial Park and it will show you everything we got going on.
And we still have spaces for summer camp. So
yes, absolutely. It's a lot of fun and it's from 7:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we keep the kids busy.
Awesome, thank you. It looks like we have about one more question. And what can the people of Raleigh do to support the renovation of the carousel and the park in general?
Yes, so we actually have there's going to be a community meeting for the renovations for the aquatic center. So when that information comes out, we ask that you guys come out and support and really, really just give your honest opinions, because it matters. The builders will be there. The design team will be there. So it matters. If you really want your voice to be heard, that is the time for it to be heard. Again, that information will come out as soon as they set a date.
I would also say visit the park, interact with us, get to know us at the front desk. We're pretty much here all the time. But once the carousel reopens, come visit the carousel. We're going to try and do some kind of opening day celebration, just depending on when we get the go ahead. Check out our spaces for rent. Enjoy our programs and special events. Come to the playground. Just if you want to invest yourself in the community, you could do it for free or for pay. It doesn't matter, but we just want you here.
Well, thank you, Dana and Madison, so much for taking the time to be with us today and sharing this incredible history. And congratulations, Dana, on your new position. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And thank you to all those of you who joined us today. I dropped the link to the park's event page in the chat, so definitely keep up with them. They've got a lot of fun stuff going on this summer, as they shared with us. If you haven't had a chance to check out the park yet in person, I encourage you to head over there and do so. We hope to see you at our next program as we celebrate our upcoming Longley Film Festival, History and Highballs, still starring North Carolina, that takes place tomorrow evening, Thursday, May 2nd at 7 p.m. over Zoom. In the meantime, we hope all of you have a wonderful afternoon and we'll see you soon, guys. Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.